Well, the Hendrys decide to have a small tactical exchange of their own. The kids are downstairs learning that NATO deployed 3 tactical nukes against the Russian troops, who respond by nuking the regional NATO headquarters, calling for SAC Command to open up the secret box containing the chattering teeth. While Mrs. Hendry is basking in the wake of first and possible second strike launches, there's... Oh, again, you are incorrigible. But no, that's the neighbors launching off their rockets, making the certainty of what's about to happen undeniable, although that won't stop some from trying. At the Dahlbergs, Denise's earlier assertion of independence against her father is reversed as she clutches a stuffed animal and talks to her father like she was a little girl again, and her mother making the bed as if she can somehow force this to not be happening by sheer bloody-minded house cleaning. Reenacting the day they met Denise's fiancé. Well, the war has now entered its final stage with the launching of ICBMs. Now, while this could be an attempt to cripple the Soviet military forces and thus merely an escalation, the mention of the destruction of Beale Air Force Base, which is responsible for watching for ballistic missile launches along most of the Pacific coast, suggests that it's more likely that the U.S. is assuming the Soviets did that so that they could get some strategic nukes deployed without the Americans knowing about it until it was too late, so the Americans fired off in response. Or it's possible the Soviets have given up on their conventional plan and resorted to their backup plan, travel back in time and prevent first contact. But no matter what's going on, this has crossed a boundary into crazy shit. The military guys in the base, having already launched their missiles, well, they're kind of in an insane position.
You know what that means, don't you? Either we fired first and they're going to try to hit what's left, or they fired first and we just got our missiles out of the ground in time. Either way, we're going to get hit.
So what are we still standing around here for?
Where do you want to go?
Well, how about out of here for starters? I got to get my wife and my kid.
We're still on alert, Billy. No one leaves this facility.
Oh, come
Not until
on,
the
man.
cops
Who are
are
you
coming.
And that's why I can only kind of laugh to myself a little bit here as a coping mechanism for how crazy this is. Even if your orders are to stay here until ordered to leave, does it really make any sense that all you're guarding is an empty hole? That will become an even larger hole once the incoming nuke that almost certainly is coming arrives. So everybody except McCoy decide to head down the elevator shaft and hope for the best, but he figures hauling ass makes more sense, and is probably right. At the Dahlbergs, John, the father, readies a shotgun, symbolic of the nature of this whole thing. Wars are for the most part fought over things, resources, territory, even when claims of philosophy are involved, God's will to protect freedom. Usually wars in the end are fought because somebody hopes to get something out of it. The Soviets are about to hit them with a bomb, at war with America over things. But in the end, it's not going to be Soviets that try to take what the Dahlbergs have. It's going to be other Americans. People looking to take John's food, water, shelter, daughters. After the bombs fall, the person you're at war with isn't on the other side of the world. They're on the other side of the hill. So a nuke arrives. High-altitude airburst over Kansas City, releasing large amounts of gamma rays, which in turn create high-energy electrons to be released for a very brief time, called an electromagnetic pulse. It's speculated that this one EMP here over Kansas City could probably disrupt the entire continental United States. Another targets the city itself. High-energy X-rays are absorbed by nearby atoms, then emitted with less energy to be absorbed again, and so on, creating an expanding sphere of nearly uniform high-temperature air, which is ultimately responsible for the blast wave that contains the majority of the damage. While close to the bomb, the temperature is magnitudes above that of the surface of the sun. There's not much thermal energy far from the blast point, because the blast destroys things, buildings and the like are reduced to kindling that can then be easily ignited, leading to gigantic firestorms. Various forms of radiation are released, the aforementioned gamma rays and also high-energy neutrons, with other kinds released, but inconsequential until the fallout takes place. Any three can kill in small amounts. These are all being done in overkill so excessive it'd be funny if it wasn't so sad. This is like killing a daddy longlegs with a stick of dynamite. As the blast goes off, the film shows us first Dr. Oak's daughter, briefly catching fire before being vaporized, the numerous freeze frames of people being vaporized, one frame after another after another. Now, they don't make sense from a straight narrative perspective, given what these people are doing. A lot of them are outside or at work or something like that. I mean, what are they saying? Is that the air raid sirens? Well, screw them. I'm just a leaner away from winning at horseshoes, damn it. But the intent is not to show what is actually happening literally. Its intent is to show what is happening symbolically. It's bringing home the same point over and over again. We are inflicting horrific death on a massive scale, not by showing them as they die, but showing them as they had lived, and are being told that over and over and over.
Dead, 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 dead.
And it shows what else is being killed by this bomb. It's not just humans, it's humanity that is dying. People playing in the park, people getting married, people playing music in the school band. This is human life not in a biological sense, but in a sociological sense that is being extinguished. Besides Oak's daughter, Kansas Colin Baker, and the entire Hendry family die, taken out by a strike against an empty missile silo. Yeah, it's one less hole in the ground to threaten Mother Russia. The reality that this now is seen when Jolene asks about Rusty, the family dog, who has to be left outside to die because they can't afford another mouth to feed. And that's not an easy thing to explain to a child, or her brother's injury from looking at the bomb go off. That the world as they started to understand has been replaced with one where death and misery are going to occupy the majority of the time. Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood at this time, coincidentally, although some say it was deliberate, devoted a week to a storyline called Conflict, where the neighborhood of make-believe was ready to go to war with Southwood, even showing the puppet kids in school learning about gas masks and air raid sirens. Fred Rogers, a man who probably has a song about not being scared about nuclear war. At the University of Kansas, whoever drew the short straw is hooking something up to the dish outside while they try to get some equipment set up for communication and trying to measure radiation. It's not good. What's worse are all the people flooding the campus hospital, which is in no way equipped to handle a disaster, never mind the end of the world. Threads, a UK film which came out a year later, addressed the point pretty succinctly.
Without electricity or medical support facilities, there is virtually no way a doctor can exercise his skill. As a source of help or comfort, he's little better equipped than the nearest survivor.
But they try their best to muddle through. Limited electricity, few supplies, and the immediate danger from the fallout all get in the way of treatment. Joe and his nerd team are saying that it's holding steady, probably more fallout being blown in from other explosions out west, so it'll be a while before they can safely move people out of the hospital and into other shelters.
When will it be safe to move people to other buildings?
It'll never be safe.
Not while that fairy tale trash is ruining my perfect world. It's not for about 3 days of craziness before Dr. Oakes finally has time to reflect on all of this, suffering a kind of survivor's guilt since his family were all back in Kansas City and that he was only here by accident. But this is at least a moment to catch your breath, ready yourself for when... Meanwhile, at the Dahlbergs, we'll need 3 tunnels. We must confound Jerry at every turn. But there's someone else here now. No telling who or what it could be up there, whatever kind of risk they might pose. That's why he has to be ready with that shotgun. He has to be ready to deal with whatever horror might come through that door. Hi, I'm Steve Guttenberg.
Get the hell out of here!
But after he pleads that he's alone, that everybody else is dead, and that he has his own food so he's not going to be a burden, they agree that he can stay. But soon Denise starts to lose it, being cooped up in there for so long.
Why didn't I at least get pregnant?
Just pipe down, Denise.
Because now I can't even see his face! I can't say anything!
Yeah, I sympathize, but you might want to rephrase that for the blind kid sitting next to you. She finally loses it and runs out, so Steve volunteers to go get her, running through the fallout like a man who knows just how screwed he is.
You can't see it. You can't feel it.
Is it your penis? Shut up! Eventually, he manages to talk her back inside, but damage has probably been done. Many words are associated with fallout, but frolic is not really one of them. Later, she starts hallucinating, believing that he's her fiancé, and starts to make out with him, which really makes this whole thing awkward. The perils of the farmer's daughter are already well known. There's no telling what the end of the world is going to do with it. McCoy survived by hiding in a semi-trailer, but he can't stay there forever, so now he's on a little road trip through the fallout himself, hoping to get back to his wife and son. But he finds a couple survivors from that area who say it's all gone now. And maybe that's the reason why when he finds a homeless guy, admittedly that's a rather broad term these days, obviously a pre-bomb homeless guy, getting pushed out of a line for water, he starts to take care of him. It gives him something else to live for a little while. They make it to the hospital, but it's basically a refugee camp, and their visible signs of radiation sickness means that realistically, it's all over for them. Treatment almost 30 years later in a fully equipped hospital, maybe they'd have a slim chance that the fallout dissipated and the candy bars they swiped weren't contaminated by the blast, but in 1983, on the back porch of hell, might have been better just to sit on top of that empty hole and get it over with.